Hey guys, Dr. Brian Opp here from Opp Family Chiropractic right here in St. Francis. And today I want to talk to you about how stress affects your overall health and well-being. So 75 to 90% of all office visits actually come from some type of stress, whether that's a trauma, so it's a stress on the body, a physical stress, some kind of chemical stress, you ingested foods that, came in contact with, might be allergies, things like that. Lastly, the biggest portion of that is obviously that emotional stress that we often come under. Things like grief, anger, sadness, low self esteem, those are all different things that we can store in our body. And so we often don't equate that with how our overall health is, especially if the original event that occurred to give us those feelings previously happened in the past. And often this does happen to a lot of our patients where we have to work through these things. So we're excited because we've been learning a technique called Neuro Emotional Technique, and that helps bring some of these things back to the surface so that we can help the patient work through them. So we help with a snapshot in time, and this can be at any point in time in their life where this emotion has now been equated with other situations in their body. And so, just like everybody, there's stress kind of constantly coming at us, and how we handle that is predicated a lot of times on our past events that occur. So that's why we like to do this type of work with our patients. It's very safe. At any point in time, if a patient is uncomfortable with where the technique is going, we can stop the technique and we can put them in a position where they can calm themselves down and work through whatever that issue is. It's totally dictated by the patient. The practitioner just helps the patient as a guide to ask some questions to help with some of the things that they may be dealing with. And there's a couple of different ways where we can go about this. Some patients just already know what's bothering them. I've had patients come in and they're angry about a situation. So in order to be able to get them adjusted, we'll work through some of that, what's really causing that anger. And it can take anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes, if depending on how much emotion is really being brought up in those sessions. So once that snapshot is discovered and brought about by the patient, because it's like, once again, the things that occur in our past are affecting how we make decisions in the future, how we're feeling about certain situations. And so realizing what those are and then working through those with some breathing techniques. We have you hold some what we call pulse points on the wrist. And often patients feel like there's a weight lifted off of them. They just feel lighter. And so when we do the structural change there with the adjustment, it just goes way easier for those patients. It's easy to recognize a lot of times patients, especially if I've been working with somebody for a little bit, they just come in agitated, right? Their pupils might be dilated, there might be a little sweaty, they just seem off from their normal demeanor that I've seen in the past there. So often I'll just bring up as something bothering them, because if we don't address that portion, then we're really doing a disservice. Now, this technique is not a replacement for any kind of talk therapy, counseling, anything like that. It just helps in the moment at that time to help with getting that structural aspect there and that emotional aspect brought out and dealt with essentially at that time. And then, if there's something they need to talk through with a counselor or a therapist or anything, then it is easier for them to be able to do that because they have done the work previously then. So yeah, if you guys are dealing with some stress, we often have other things that we do with those patients. There's some homeopathics that we'll use along with the neuro-emotional technique. Obviously, there's some nutritional things. I really like Stress Essentials, the Stress Essentials formulas that we have through Nutrition Dynamics. Sometimes people are so exhausted, which I've seen a lot more of, where we have to build their adrenal glands up. So they're just so depleted in the cortisol, and that just continues to pull nutrients to be able to make itself. Because realistically, you can't live very long without cortisol because it helps make other steroid hormones like epinephrine and norepinephrine to keep your heart pumping there. And the stress response is key because at any point in time, you need to be able to survive, right? And that's really what cortisol is about survival there. And so that's why I always call it the king of the hormones, right? So if you guys are dealing with some stress and are interested in finding out more about the neuroemotional technique, definitely reach out to our office. We can help work through it's a separate appointment because, the work can take a little bit longer. We want to make sure we're not speeding through some of this aspect there, so the patient feels that they're getting what they need during that session. So you guys reach out. We're definitely here to help with your emotional, your structural well-being, any of the nutritional needs that you might have questions with, so that we can make your life as well-rounded as it possibly can. Thanks, guys.